which is how do we deal with the outliers? How do you deal? Like, see, my thought is that, you know, you're trying to change people's consciousness, and it seems to me that consciousness has to change before you can really deal with people, and like not everyone's going to get on board. You know what I mean? So, like, how do you deal with people that are psychopaths? How do you deal with people that are mentally ill? You know, how you go about your daily life.
Yeah, it's very important question there. Not an easy answer. I wish I did have an easy answer to that. Is regarding primary psychopaths and the mentally ill. If the bulk of humanity were able to come out of their brainwashing and reach a higher level of consciousness and reach an understanding of truth, those individuals would not have to be, quote unquote, dealt with as much as we would think. The morality that would be being lived within and displayed, so to speak, by the bulk of the population would practically negate those forces in the world. And I'm not saying there still wouldn't be effects that they could create, but they would be so mitigated that we would not even talk about their effects. It would be like a mosquito, you know, one mosquito, compared to right now, we're being, you know, it's like a absolute bludgeoning by, you know, a deluge of beings that are completely stuck in low-level consciousness because of where we're at, you know, because of the level of unconsciousness that humanity is trapped in. And how we affect that is ultimately at an individual level. You have to reach people that, through the knowledge that they've already taken into themselves and have gone somewhat part way, you can start to pull them over all the way to the higher and deeper levels of truth. And that's what things like this radio show Progression are about, you know? And other people can start doing that. They could put their own presentations together. They could put their own videos together, their own documentaries, their own podcast series. Ultimately, it's about creating. My ultimate answer to this question is you counteract the dynamic of unconsciousness through the act of creation. That's what the ultimate force that counteracts this negative dynamic is. See, I had to create artwork and arrange things in my way. Maybe I didn't create every single aspect of it. I pulled things from here and there to make slides and make my presentation dynamics and aesthetics the way that they are. But that's an act of creation. Making a poster, reaching out to people, you know, just the style that you speak in, you know, putting that out there, recording it. You know, it's media creation. Ultimately, it's a form of art. You know, regardless of what you want to call it, you know, you're reaching other people's consciousness through a form of media. Okay, and you could do this in person from your lips to their ears, but you can only reach so many people that way. Through the dynamic interaction that we have with others through this medium called the internet, we can reach consciousness that is far removed from us, that we never would meet in real life. How many people's lives have I possibly affected that I've never met and will never meet in my natural lifetime or theirs? Yet we have a bond and a connection. Like you said, you feel like you know me. We do know each other. All the people who care about truth ultimately know each other. That's the real true family that's operating here on earth. That we're trying to take other people into the fold of this family. You know, it's the real humanity, the awakened human spirit of people who care for truth and care for the difference between right and wrong and want to be on the side of right. Not in an appearance. Not because they think they are, but because they really definitively know they are through knowledge that is objective and is unwavering and unchanging. You know, the laws of nature, the knowledge of the difference between right and wrong, that constitutes, the people who know that constitute a family. They constitute a dynamic, interacting group of individuals who are working to change consciousness on earth. They're doing the great work. They are the true workers that are performing the great work here on earth. to end slavery. So that's how we have to do it, through creating media. We create. We put it out there in any way that you have the talent to do it. Write a book, write a story, write a fictional allegory, write a screenplay, paint a painting, make music that deals with these themes, make a podcast, make a documentary. It doesn't matter how you do it. Create something. Put it out there for others in a way that they can understand it. Period. That's ultimately the answer. Again, how each individual does that, that's their own, contribution to the work. But, that's what we ultimately have to work toward, is, using our creative abilities to put the truth out there to others. And again, it doesn't make a difference who's ready to hear it or not. Admittedly, some people are very unconscious and not ready to hear the truth. It doesn't make a difference. Plant the seed in their consciousness by unwaveringly and unapologetically speaking the truth in their presence. A seed of truth that is spoken aloud cannot be unheard. And maybe it will sprout later down the line. We do not know that. But if you don't speak it out there to them, you can't say that you actually put that seed out there, possibly for growth and development later on. So, great question, Ray. I hope I've partially answered that, and I admit it's a tough thing to do, but we have to get on that playing field and get to work doing it.
Ram Dass is, with Timothy Leary. Mm-hmm. How does Ram Dass fit in the whole picture?
Well, I've looked at a lot of Ram Dass's work, and I wouldn't necessarily just throw him and group him in with like New Age gurus. I do like some of the work that he's put out there regarding transcendental meditation and calming the mind and being able to really listen to the voice of truth by getting your own mental chatter and mental noise out of the way. So some of the things that he's discussed regarding meditation I take as valuable. I'll continue telling you my thoughts on Ram Dass after this. CJ was asking me before the break what I thought of Ram Dass's work, and I was saying that regarding the information he covers about transcendental meditation, I find it useful, and I kind of pretty much will take some of the information that people like this put forward regarding spiritual practices in the realm of quieting the mind, getting in touch with the inner self, exploring the world of deeper consciousness within, and take that. But then if they don't really go farther in their understanding of what's going on in the world, I'll take that part that I feel does do good and does resonate and does, help people to advance spiritually through that practice, and then, leave the rest, so to speak. It's like we don't have to agree with every single thing or every aspect of somebody's work to feel that they're putting out something that makes a valuable contribution. So I think his work on meditation is very valuable. I've never told people that meditation isn't something that should be practiced or engaged in. It is very transformative if it's used correctly, if it's used properly and in a state of balance, to balance the mind, but not take us too far in a state of right brain imbalance. With that having been said, someone who really doesn't understand the occult aspects of what is going on in the world often takes a more right brain, imbalanced bent to spirituality. And again, that's where it becomes something that you have to be careful with, because again, in my Streetwise Spirituality seminar, out of all the things that I could have chose as the number one factor of what it means to truly be an awake being, what was my number one factor for what being awake really means? A being who is truly awake in this world understands the occult. They know what occult information actually is, what it contains, how it is used, who uses it, the reasons they use it for, okay? And they are working with that knowledge. And they are trying to expand that knowledge to more people, to more people's minds, so it levels the playing field and it stops hiding this critical knowledge of ourselves and the laws of nature that we so desperately need to understand deeply if we're going to change this planet for the better, if we're going to change our species for the better. Okay, so the number one factor, in my opinion, that makes a person awake is that they understand the occult. And that's something that you will not hear from any other researcher that is talking about consciousness, that is talking about spirituality, that is talking about what it means to be awake. I've never heard one other person say that as a true factor of what it means to be a spiritually enlightened human being. That you understand what the occult really is. So essentially, my seminar coming up in Connecticut next month, early next month, October 4th, in Manchester, Connecticut, it completely expands and unpacks that very first factor that I talked about in Streetwise Spirituality. Well, if the very first factor in what it means to be awake truly is to know about the occult, all of these people who claim that they're enlightened gurus and enlightened teachers of humanity that are involved in any other aspect of consciousness or awakening, or however you want to word it, whatever you want to call it, how many of them have deep occult knowledge? How many of them are really involved in the exposing of occult knowledge to the masses of people in the world? How many of them really know about the dark side of the occult and how that's controlling the world right now? And how that knowledge can be used in a very disempowering way if people are ignorant of its techniques, of that knowledge, and how these techniques can be employed. I'd say the vast majority of these so-called spiritual teachers have no clue about the occult. You go to a New Age expo, you go to a spiritual expo, not one person there that I've ever really run into deeply knows about the occult. Certainly not the dark aspects of it. Certainly knows nothing about Satanism and dark Luciferianism at work in the world. Zero. So this is an extended answer to this question about what I feel about certain, quote, spiritual gurus or whatever, who I would say I will take the information from them that they have correct and that they work with in a good way, and then I will also look at the overall well-roundedness of their information and say, well, do they have the whole picture? And sadly, the answer usually comes back, they have part of the picture, but they haven't gone all the way. They're one of the people that I call, and I don't want to make it such a vitriolic thing, they're people who haven't gone all the way. They're part-wayers or half-wayers, It's just a name to call it. It's a label. Admittedly, it's a label, okay? Not trying to beat up on them or say that all their information is worthless. You have to take their information and see it in terms of the big, wider picture. And in many cases, a lot of these researchers and teachers don't have the whole picture. But the aspects that they do cover, in many cases, they do a good job with those. So I can kind of consider Ram Dass in one of those, in that kind of category. I hope that answers your question.
Hey, thanks. I thought I called in with an idea of what I wanted to talk about, but what you have just been talking about is actually basically the specialty subject of the study of my life. So, and you have played a huge role in this. Basically what you were just saying, that there's a tremendous amount of useful, valuable information in, the current spiritual and religious circles out there. I have a master's degree in religious studies from Naropa. I lived in a Buddhist monastery for 2 years with a lot of people who were constantly talking about liberation and about becoming free from conditioning. And I will corroborate your opinion, at least in mostly traveled in Buddhist circles. There is no knowledge of the occult.
None.
There is no, it was just dramatic. How focused these people were on ending suffering. And I was looking around, and actually, your teaching has been absolutely a lightning bolt in my life of integrating both of these sides. But not only not of the occult,